process of dynamic forms are that organisations can design and develop categories which sit under the form. These categories allow citizens to report incidents, make applications, make payment for services. In fact, they can do anything that that organisation wants to allow the citizen to do in order that they can complete any process that is relevant to business areas within that organisation. The main difference between a paper form and a dynamic form is that these dynamic forms are intuitive. So therefore, we can take the customer to wherever we want to go in response to the answers we get. For instance, on an abandoned vehicle, if a customer replies to a question such as, is this vehicle taxed? Yes or no? If the customer replies yes, then the vehicle is not considered abandoned, and therefore we can direct the customer to that part of the form which will probably see it, I'm sorry, but we don't class this vehicle as abandoned. A paper form does not allow you to do that. It's more restrictive. Categories are what sit under the dynamic form. The categories, for instance, could be abandoned vehicle, fly tipping, which would sit under the umbrella of the dynamic form, which would be entitled reported. So a category is something on which you can pay for something, report an incident. When we want to design and develop a form, the first thing we'll do is go to the administration tab, which you can see on the top right hand of your screen, coloured in blue. The administration tab is probably the most important tab on the platform, as this is where we'll configure all functionalities and actions in respect of the back office. If we go to forms and I click on the arrow, it will tell me what forms are available to me. If I click on report it and then go to categories, it will also show me all those categories that are available under the umbrella of report it. I'll click fly tipping for now. I can select a page if I want, but I'll not do so at the minute. If we go into search, and what we get is called the tree. The tree will show me the whole content of that particular category. Now this is there is ways in which we can create a form and create a category from this particular tree. As you can see, we've got minimizers to the left hand side. If I go to the minimizer on the form of report it, it will let me add a form at the bottom here. So if I click on add form, and as you can see, what I talked about previously, the action page, this is what we've got to populate to create a new form. We are now going to create a form called apply for it. So we'll put in the name, and then if we go to type, that tells us we've got to choose one of 4 options. Is this a service request, or is it a task form that will be attached to mobile worker? Is it a case management form, or is it a master data management form? We'll go to service request on this. Below it tells us the access levels. Public means that this can be completed anonymously. If I click on customer, it means it's available to those who are registered with the platform. If it's user, it's staff only. Now if I click on access roles, it lets me drill further down. There may be an access role here that I just want configured for this form, so I can pick any number of access roles to this particular form, but we'll just leave it for now and we'll say it's going to be open to all members of the staff. I would untick public on this because obviously if it's applied for it, I would need details from the person who is making this particular application. You've got an add button which we'll add, and that tells me this action is now being processed. If we minimize the form now, and as you can see that our form apply for it has been added at the bottom there. So if we click on that, search, and now we can add the category to go onto apply for it. And we'll call this category parking permit. We've got customer visibility, which is either default behavior, which is your normal one, or it may be you want to add a plugin of some sort here and now. So as you can see here, we've got customer visibility. The difference between default behavior and plugin is that on default behavior, the customer's details will be asked for at the front. If it's plugin, then it will be asked for at the rear of the category. Access levels we've already explained, and once again, as you can see, that on access roles we can drill down further into certain, when we just want this category to be applicable to certain members of staff. Now, if you notice on the access level that the levels of the category are repeated from the original form, and that will happen throughout this category. If you want to change it, you'll have to do it manually. The status life cycle is open to closed. It may be open to work in progress to closed. We give you a default status life cycle with all options. However, in the back office of the platform, you can create and design your own status life cycles that are applicable to a particular category. As you can see, the status, is it enabled, is it disabled? Sharing means, are you willing to share this category with other councils? And as we talk later on about Form Store, this will become obvious. Home routing, is it enabled or disabled? Home routing means that, for instance, if I am with Wiltshire Council and I have the app and I'm in Newcastle and I drive over a pothole, if home routing is disabled, I can make a report in Newcastle via the Wiltshire app. That report will go to Newcastle Council. However, if I have it enabled, home routing means every report I make will go to Wiltshire Council. Is there a method of payment available? If you have to pay for the permit, you would have it enabled. If not, it would just remain disabled. I can pick an icon from this particular gallery. I can also create my own if I so wish, and we'll talk about that later on, how we can upload our own icons. A marker icon is necessary, and once again we'll talk about this later when we talk about nearby reports. Once I've done that, I'll click on add, and as you can see, the action has been processed. The purpose of having the page on a category is that you are able to group together a list of questions that are relevant to that particular page. Imagine it like a book, yeah? You've got your first page, which may be telling a particular part of the story. On the next page, you want to develop a different theme. So now what I need to do, I can either add a page from here, where the cursor is on the tree, or I can add a page in the action section of the screen. So I click on add page. I want to add a page entitled information. As you can see, I can put on header and footer text if I so want. I can also give a description of the page. I am now going to add a region. Regions are particularly useful in the aesthetics of the category. This is where I want to group data. For instance, it may be a person's details, it could be details of a vehicle, whatever. So I've added important information there, and we'll add that region. Items are really important to dynamic forms and to categories. What the items allow you to do is draw information that you require from the member of the public. Also, you can provide information to them. You can give select lists that they can choose from. You can give checkboxes that they can choose from. It really is the most important part of the category. Now, this is the important bit. What sort of information do I want to get? And how we pull information, we add items. So if we click on add item, and it may be I want to ask a question here. So I'll ask a question. So I've asked the question, why do you need a permit? And if I go down to item type, as you can see, there are 5 hyperlinked areas. And what these are the most important, these are the most popular ones. But if I click on the select list, it will give me the full one. And I'll just run through them briefly. Text field tend to be used for objective questions, like a yes or no answer is required. Text area tends to be where a subjective question has been asked, and therefore you need to allow that person to write what they've seen, heard, or give a particular explanation. Display, you can have information displayed in plain text or HTML text. Select list is a select list which will allow us to create sub-items, and we'll talk about that later as we go. Radio group is just like a select list, but instead of giving you a checkbox, it will give you a radio button. A checkbox, this is where the submitter is given a number of options of which they can choose as many as they like. However, they're not dynamic, and they can't produce sub-items. Date picker. This date picker is aside from the date where the incident happened. It could be you want to create a date of birth for somebody. It could be it could be a date of birth. It could be a date picker. This is where you want the submitter to, for instance, submit their date of birth, etc. Flip toggle switch is just for the portal only. For instance, where there's a yes or no option, and you can flick the switch across to that one. I've asked them to take that off. Password is where, for instance, on a payment, you may have the CVC number to put in, and it will not display the CVC number. It will just display buttons. Number is where you just want to create a numerical content. Plugin, we're going to talk about in a moment. Hidden, first time I've seen it, I haven't got a clue.
Hidden is where you want to capture data on the form that is later interrogated via third-party systems.
Right. Hidden is where you want to capture particular data on a form which is later interrogated by third-party systems. So we went to text field. Why do you need a permit? Now, we've talked about placeholders. It's important. So what I'm going to add here is please add here. And that will tell the submitter, particularly on a mobile device, where they have to populate their content.
That's a bit rubbish. Please add here. It should be more descriptive. Why do you need a permit? So actually you should say here. Give reasons and
no, just put please put reason for permit here.
No, you ain't gonna do please.
Put reason for permit here.
Reasons and justification.
And here we will put reasons and justifications for permit, and immediately the submitter knows that this is where the content's got to go and what they have got to put. The keyboard type, we can either add string, number, email or phone. We're going to add string here, and what the string is just basically the contents of your keyboard. Is it required? Yes or no? Once we click on yes, what we are saying is this question is mandatory. Once we've done that, we'll add the item. And you can see the action's been processed. Now let's go across to our tree. And as you can see, the tree is populated with the content we've just added. Plugins on advanced form of technology. They are really vital to the design and the development of the category. They take you a step further than a normal item, such as a text box or a text area. What a plugin can do is link to another service. It can allow payment for a service. It can create a map. And you can add files, take photographs from a plugin. So they really are vital to capturing and giving information to customers. RBAC, which is role-based access control, allows for instance, super administrator to allow certain individuals access to the platform that is compatible with their role within an organisation. By controlling the role-based access to forms, we can designate who we want to have access to those particular forms. For instance, there's 3 categories. There's public, there's the customer, and there is the user. Now, the public means that people who want to remain anonymous can have access to a particular form. The customer can be people who are registered with the platform. The user is members of admin. So if it is a form that we wish to go out to admin staff only, then we would only tick the admin box on that particular form, and no member of the public, whether they're anonymous or registered, would have access to it. Once we are happy with this part of the form, we must then publish it. What publishing allows you to do is for it to be displayed on the portal once the form is finished. So if we go across to publish, we'll tick the box and then we go on the publish button, and as you can see, that form now will be published. From the action box on the right hand side there is a preview button. This is particularly useful for previewing the category or the form as we go along. So if I click on parking permit and press go, as you can see, the first part of the category is displayed there. Now this is particularly useful if we've designed quite a long form, and before we publish it, maybe we have to make some changes. The way the forms are released both to admin staff and members of the public, or that once you've completed your particular form and you've completed all the categories that you want to sit underneath that, you then have 2 methods of control before it's released. You can also preview a form to make sure that you're happy with the content and how it's going to look to the public. Once you are happy, you can, for the portal, there is a publish control mechanism that sits above the form. And what you can do is preview the form. If you're happy with it, then click on the publish button, and then that will make it live within the customer and staff portal. However, there's a further control mechanism for the app. What you must do, once you've completed your form and then, like again, all the categories that sit underneath it, and you're happy with it, then you have to publish it via generating metadata through the back office. It will then appear on the app. However, if you don't do that, then it will not go out live until this process has been completed. The most important piece of advice we could give anybody is create your form on a flip chart first. The actual design and development of the form via the platform is the easy part. You must sort out your process and system of the form and have it written out before you actually commit yourself to designing and developing the category via the back office. If you don't, what you could find is that you waste a lot of time by continually changing the flow of the actual form and category. Placeholders are extremely important because they direct the customer as to where to put the information. Now that may seem an obvious thing, but for some people looking at a mobile device, it is important for them that they know where that particular information has to go. So therefore, placeholders are vital when you're completing the design of the form. Another tip is to make good use of mandatory fields. Think about the information you're trying to draw. If it is information that is fundamental to the form, then you can make that field mandatory. The member of the public cannot progress without completing that field. The third, and probably I think the most important tip, is remember who you're designing the form for. It's got to look good. So therefore, when you're designing the flow, think about the pages and the items that you're going to put in. It must look good to that member of the public. For instance, if you overload a particular page with information and too many questions, that person is not going to complete it. So therefore, you've got to think about the aesthetics of the category and the form.